Nag-asawa na ba ito? Justin, are you married already? Are you married? Not yet, but you have a girlfriend? Oh? Are you telling the truth? Anyway, mahalin mo ang Pilipina, ha? Napamahal na siya sa mga Pilipino. At alam ko po rin na napamahal na rin ang mga Pilipino sa kanya, vice versa. Sabi ko nga sa hearing, ito ang pinaka-importante. Higit sa talento sa basketball, ipinapakita niya ang puso niya na lumalaban para sa Pilipino at ang pagmamahal niya sa ating bayan. Patuloy siyang magiging inspirasyon ng Pilipinong kabataan, lalo na pagdating sa sports at paglayo sa mga bisyo tulad ng illegal na droga. Paalala ko lang kay Mr. Brownlee, tulad ng napag-usapan noong hearing, ang pagbibigay ng Philippine citizenship ay hindi basta-basta. Bukod sa paglaro sa larangan ng palakasan at pagrepresenta ng bansa, kasama rin dito ang tungkulin ng bawat mamamayang Pilipino na magsilbi sa bayan at unahin ang interes ng Pilipinas. Mr. Brownlee, naway patuloy mong isapuso ang pagiging isang Pilipino. Mahalin mo ang Pilipinas higit sa pagmamahal na ipinaparamdam sa iyo ng mga Pilipino. As chairperson of the Committee on Sports and an avid basketball fan, I am proud that we would gain a new brother that we can proudly call Filipino. It is for these reasons that I am asking this chamber's support for granting Philippine citizenship to Mr. Justin Brownlee. 3 points. Being taken into consideration, it is with great honor that I co-sponsor the bill granting Philippine citizenship to Mr. Justin Donta Brownlee. Parating na raw. Excited na kami ni sponsor Senator Tol. Born in Georgia, USA, Mr. Brownlee first arrived in the Philippines in 2016 as a recruit in the Philippine Basketball Association competitions. He initially joined as a replacement import. He then showcased his talents, which led Barangay Ginebra claim its first PBA championship in 8 years. Since then, he has assisted and led his team achieve 5 PBA championships in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2021. Dahil sa kagalingan niya sa court, maraming Pilipino ang napahanga niya. He is admired by millions of Filipino basketball fans. Mr. Brownlee did not take too much credit for his team's accomplishments and just prided himself to just being there for his team. Hindi lang po dahil sa husay sa court dapat hangaan si Justin Brownlee, kundi pati na rin sa kanyang pagpapakumbaba. Despite suffering from an injury last year, Mr. Brownlee managed to claim the 5th spot on the all-time import scoring list. He was also named Best Import twice, first in the 2018 PBA Commissioner's Cup, and second in the 2021 PBA Governor's Cup. This shows his dedication to the sport and his commitment to his team. Kaya naman, habang tumatagal, mas nagiging deserving siya na naturalize. Nakaka-blend siya sa basketball team natin. Alam na niya kung paano yung mga galaw ng kanyang mga teammates. Alam naman natin na napaka-importante po kung naka-blend ka na po sa mga teammates mo para manalo. Nandyan po, isa pang idol, nandyan no, katabi ni Justin Brownlee, yung team captain, yung nakakalo. Yung Tolentino, magaling mag 3 points. Nakita ko kagabi, puro 3 points si... Kano-ano mo si Arvin? Pamangkin ni Tol. And of course, salamat rin po sa lahat no, during the hearing. Ang ating enforcer, Senator Bato de la Rosa, ang ating majority floor leader, ang court general. Yan ang pinakamagaling na basketball player dito sa Senado. Sigurado ako si Senator Joel Villanueva, si Senator JV, and of course si Senator Angara na napakahusay. And of course ang aming team manager, Senator Nancy Binay, ang mga muse, Senator Risa, at nandito na talaga si Justin Brownlee sa likod. Timing ah. With his career achievements, I have no doubt that Justin Brownlee will be a huge help to Gilas Pilipinas in the FIBA Basketball World next year. Importante po na magkaroon tayo ng malakas na national team dahil tayo rin ang isa sa mga host ng FIBA World Cup sa susunod na taon. As a PBA fan, madalas po akong manood ng mga laban at masasabi ko po talaga na malaki ang magiging kontribusyon ni Justin Brownlee sa ating team. Kalimutan ko pong banggitin, of course, ang aside from muse and manager, dito po ang ating financer ng team, Senator Cynthia Villar. Of course, kayo po ang pinaka-financer dito, ma'am. Lahat. Si SP, sana ba? Pinaka-boss natin dito. Salamat rin po sa lahat ng kasama natin dito na sumusuporta. And of course, alam ko namang sinusuportahan niyo po ang ating Gilas basketball team. As a PBA fan, madalas po akong manood ng mga laban at masasabi ko talaga na malaki ang magiging kontribusyon ni Justin Brownlee sa ating national team sa pananatili niyo dito sa ating bansa. Napatunayan niya, hindi lang sa basketball skill niya, kundi pati na rin sa pagmamahal niya po sa Pilipino at sa bansa. Alam kong naisa puso na niya ang ating tradisyon at kultura.
Thank you, Mr. President, Majority Leader. Good afternoon, Mr. President, and distinguished colleagues. It is my honor and privilege to co-sponsor House Bill number 6224, taking into consideration Senate Bill number 1336 filed by this representation under Committee Report number 13, a measure which will grant Philippine citizenship to Mr. Justin Brownlee. Born on April 23, 1988 in Georgia, USA, Mr. Brownlee first arrived in the Philippines in 2016 as a basketball recruit of the Philippine Basketball Association. He traveled across the globe and easily bounced his way to every Filipino's hearts. He was invited to become as an import of the best PBA team, my team, Barangay Ginebra. Mr. Brownlee was so well loved that the residents of the Barangay Ginebra invited him to play for them again and again and again. They could not get enough of him, and he was treated like their own. In such a short span of time, Mr. Brownlee has been awarded a two-time Best Import Trophy, an achievement that only the best of the best can attain. Indeed, Mr. Brownlee has exhibited his high basketball IQ. This resulted to 5 PBA titles for my beloved Ginebra team. Authoring and co-sponsoring a naturalization bill in favor of a very humble individual like Mr. Brownlee is more than an honor for a legislator like me. He has chosen, his humility has endeared him not only to the Filipino basketball fans, but to the Filipino nation, especially the one Ginebra nation. He has chosen to raise the Philippine flag to represent the country in the international arena by choice, and more importantly, without any reservation. It is not just his love for basketball and his astounding performance that makes Mr. Brownlee as inspiration to us as basketball fans. During the committee hearing of the Senate Committee on Justice and Human Rights, Mr. Brownlee, without any hesitation, expressed his intention to join the government in its anti-drug campaign and the AFP Reserve Force should he be granted Philippine citizenship. With these qualities, Mr. President, it is this representation's humble opinion that Mr. Brownlee is truly a Filipino by heart, as he has shown love for the country, a quality that makes one more than qualified to be granted Philippine citizenship. To grant of his citizenship will make us one step closer from having our own version of a dream team that will represent and win for our country in international basketball tournaments. Thus, I urge my colleagues, Ginebra fans or not, to support the passage of this measure.
Taking into consideration Senate Bills 1336, 1516, and 1519. And Mr. President, we recommend the approval of this committee report without amendments, Mr. President. As a member of the Barangay Ginebra, Mr. President. And some of our colleagues here, karangalan ko pong isulong ang pagiging Pilipino ng isang kilalang basketball player na naninirahan na po sa ating bansa for the last 6 years. Compared to other athletes who were granted Filipino citizenships before, Justin Brownlee has been with the Filipinos for the last 6 years. Pursuant to Congress's constitutional power, it has the legislative authority under Article 6, Section 1 of the 1987 Constitution to grant Filipino citizenship to certain foreign nationals for their significant contribution or notable service to the country and to the Filipino people. This Mr. Brownlee has exemplified as an exceptional basketball player and as a role model of the Filipino youth, for the Filipino youth. Born in Tifton, Georgia, Mr. Brownlee began playing basketball at a high level with the St. John's University in 2009. After college, he further honed his skills by training with the NBA Development League from 2011 to 2014. He then brought his athleticism to the Philippine shores back in 2016 when, after just being a replacement import for his ball club, he won 5 titles with Ginebra while playing in the Philippine Basketball Association. He was awarded the best import during the 2018 Commissioner's Cup and the 2021 PBA Governor's Cup. With his stellar showing in the PBA, he was also tapped to play for San Miguel Alab Pilipinas in the ASEAN Basketball League, which also yielded a championship in 2017 and 2018 season. After several stops in the various international tournaments such as the 30th Dubai International Basketball Tournament, the Lebanese Basketball League, and the UAE National Basketball League, he returned to the PBA to win more individual and collective accolades with his mother team. Mr. President, to say that the Philippines is obsessed with basketball is an understatement. In every barangay, we see children playing on the streets, wearing slippers or even barefoot, shooting in makeshift basketball rings, sometimes made of old tires and even discarded toilet bowls, Mr. President. Basketball is played and known by almost everyone in the country. This is how much we love basketball and look up to the discipline, the athleticism, the focus that comes with exceptionally being great at such an enjoyable sport. Now, this is why we look up to basketball players we idolize like Mr. Brownlee. Marami po nangangarap, mahal na Pangulo, na baka po manalo naman ang Pilipinas sa mga iba't ibang kompetisyon. Marami po nakapanood kung paano talunin ng Morocco ang Belgium sa World Cup. Marami po nakapanood kung paano rin po nanalo ang Japan sa World Cup. Marami po nangangarap hanggang sa ngayon na baka sa isang pagkakataon, sa isang iglap, ay magkaroon din po tayo ng ganong karanasan. Mr. President, Mr. Brownlee is part of that dream among youngsters, among hoopsters, among basketball players like our majority leader and the great shooting guard, Senator Bong Go, as well as the great enforcer, Senator Bato de la Rosa, as well as the great shooting forward, Senator J.B. Ejercito, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, if I may continue standing at 6'6", although I intimated to the minority leader that he might be 6'6.5" or even 6'7", and averaging 29.8 29 points per game and 10.57 rebounds per game and 7.43 assists per game, I would like to state for the record, Mr. President, that Mr. Brownlee, who is about to arrive within a few minutes, he was just entangled in some traffic conditions along the way, not through no fault of mine, Mr. President. Mr. Brownlee will be before us voluntarily applying to be a citizen of the Philippines as we participate and host the FIBA basketball tournament next year. Mahirap naman po, Mr. President, mapagaya tayo sa Qatar na opening round lang po ng World Cup, sila yung host, natalo na kagad. So yun po yung iniiwasan natin. We will be the host of the World Cup of basketball next year, and we hope to achieve some victories in that group bracket. To say that our applicant for naturalization today will greatly help the Philippine team in their quest, the Gilas team, for that elusive glory is undeniable. He will be part, I believe, of that team that we will be sending to the Southeast Asian Games and hopefully to the Asian Games, Mr. President. But let me underscore, Mr. President, that outside the field of basketball, Mr. Brownlee has endeared himself not just to the Filipino basketball fans, but more especially to our youth. Mr. President, I was informed that during the House deliberations several weeks ago, tinanong po si Mr. Brownlee, and I'm now speaking in our dialect, bakit gusto mong maging Pilipino? Ang sabi po ni Mr. Brownlee, he is now a resident of Pasig City, Mr. President. Ang nasabi po ni Mr. Brownlee, tuwing wala daw po siyang ginagawa, especially during the lockdown period, paminsan-minsan po nag-i-scooter siya, nakamotor, umiikot po siya sa Pasig City at minsan sa Quezon City, at nakikita raw po niya ang mga Pilipino, kahit sa anong kondisyon, kahit sa mga informal settlements, naglalaro ng basketball, masasaya. Nowhere in the world can you find such a group of people, always happy amidst hardship. To summarize the answer of Mr. Brownlee, ang ibig po sabihin nito, naramdaman na po niya ang kultura ng Pilipino. Hindi lang po sa pagkain ng adobo at ng minudo, naramdaman na po niya at bahagi na po siya ng ugaling Pilipino. Having stayed in the Philippines for almost 6 years now, he would often, as I've said, mix with Filipinos in his own barangay in Pasig. According to him, and I repeat this, he admires Filipinos because despite difficult conditions, we still manage to smile and be positive. With all the negativity and divisiveness in the world, he admires the Filipinos for always having a positive outlook in life and veering towards unity in the midst of any divide. Tatanungin po siguro ako mamaya kung sino mag-interpolate sa akin, Mr. President, ano ang pagkakaiba niya dun sa mga naunang naging Pilipino. Mr. Brownlee stayed here. Unlike the other Filipino naturalized players who came from abroad to play here. He was here before he was naturalized. Kaya meron na po siyang acclimatization, culturalization, and more than a positive outlook as a Filipino because he is part of us. He admires the Filipinos, as I have said, because of our positive outlook in life. Indeed, he has embraced the Filipino culture as well as embodied the Filipino values of perseverance, determination, and dedication to his craft. Kanina po, Mr. President, nagkaroon po ng hearing ang committee ni Senator De La Rosa tungkol sa ROTC. Ang sinabi po doon ng isang retired general, ang training po ng ROTC is not just to imbibe discipline, citizenship, and patriotism, but to enable the Filipino youth to be prepared to defend the Philippines. Yun po yung pinagtalunan kanina sa ROTC hearings, Mr. President. Mr. President, I was privileged to ask a pointed question to Mr. Brownlee. And I'd like to show with pride this video clip during that moment, Mr. President. Can we have the tape played? Section 4 of our Constitution, and I quote, "The prime duty of government is to serve and protect the people. The government may call upon the people to defend the state, and in the fulfillment thereof, all citizens may be required under conditions provided by law to render personal, military, or civil service." Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to defend the Philippines? Are you willing to participate in any disaster, calamity, rescue operations during typhoon season?
Apo.
Your answer is opo.
Apo.
So that means you're willing to join the Philippine Army Reserve Force.
Apo.
Thank you, Mr. Brownlee. I have no further questions. Mr. President, medyo pabiro lang po siguro ang dating sa iba, but that to me is a sign not just of a person aspiring to become a Filipino because he's an athlete, but he would want to become a Filipino and die, perhaps, as a Filipino. I recall, Mr. President, medyo hinahabaan ko na to, wala pa siya. I recall, Mr. President, a favorite idol of mine. His name is Governor General Francis Burton Harrison. He died 1957 in New Jersey, Mr. President. Governor General Francis Burton Harrison served the Philippines as an American. He was a member of the American contingent fighting during that American-Cuban War. I speak from the heart, Mr. President. I have no notes. Governor General Francis Burton Harrison founded more than 100, almost 200 municipalities in the Philippines, including Oton, Iloilo, a town in Guimaras, several towns in the north, among others, Mr. President. He was an advisor to President Manuel Luis Quezon. He died November 1957 in New Jersey, in the United States, Mr. President. He died in a hospital, but he came from a wealthy family. His father was former advisor to the Confederate forces. They could have won. They could have reached the White House, but they lost during the Civil War. When he died, Mr. President, they opened his will, his last will and testament. You will be surprised, Mr. President. An American citizen, when he died in New Jersey, they opened his last will and testament. You know the context, Mr. President? The first sentence of the last will and testament: to my relatives, my brothers and sisters, when I die, please bury me in my beloved country, the Philippines, in Manila. There was no wake done in the United States, in New Jersey. Immediately after that will was validated, he was brought to Manila. He now lies buried in an recognized graveyard somewhere in the North Cemetery, near the gates of the North Cemetery, Mr. President. I've seen that gate. I've seen that graveyard. I've seen his resting place. For several years, since 1957 or 1958, as I speak today, no one has visited that graveyard. No one. There is no relative of Governor General Francis Burton Harrison visiting that graveyard on November 1 every day, every year, annually. Wala po siyang kamag-anak. Wala po siyang tiyuhin, tiyahin, kumpare, pamangkin, inaanak na para mag-alay ng bulaklak tuwing araw ng mga patay. What I'm saying is this, Mr. President. There are perhaps some non-Filipinos wanting to be Filipinos who would prefer to die as Filipinos. I'm not saying that Mr. Justin Brownlee will be part of that tradition. But what I'm saying is this, Mr. President. Hindi po nakakahiya na tumanggap tayo ng banyaga na maging Pilipino, lalong-lalo na kung sila ay magiging tunay na Pilipino at hihigitan pa ang mga ginagawa ng ating mga bayani, kagaya po ng ginawa ni Governor General Francis Burton Harrison, whose only legacy is a name street in Pasay City and a small alley in Baguio City and a mall which is now being demolished to pave the way for another condominium project, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, we have here another American who will become a Filipino, hopefully, if this chamber would approve. As I mentioned a while ago, he has embraced the Filipino culture, he has embodied the Filipino values, and I've said this before, as a true Filipino citizen, he will dedicate his service, as he promised, by being part of the readiness of the Philippine Army Reserve Force. Mr. President, in all aspects, the Philippines has evolved and is continuing to adapt the international sphere to remain competitive, especially in sports. It is this representation's strong belief, together with the other authors of the measure, Senator Bong Go, who filed Senate Bill 1336, together with Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, an act granting Philippine citizenship to Justin Brownlee, as well as the Senate Bill 1516, introduced by Senator Sani Angara, entitled an act granting Philippine citizenship to Justin Brownlee, and Senate Bill 1519, introduced by Senator Joel Villanueva, entitled an act granting Philippine citizenship to Justin Brownlee. Mr. President, ang paniniwala ko po, this is my belief, strong belief, that Mr. Brownlee will not just be a great addition to Philippine sports, specifically basketball, but to our country as well. I believe he will be an exceptional addition to the long list of proud citizens of our great republic.
Thank you, and good afternoon again, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator De La Rosa, Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measures, the distinguished gentleman from the province of Aurora, Senator Sani Angara, but he asked this representation to just insert into the records his sponsorship speech.
Is there an objection? There being none, the sponsorship speech of Senator Angara is inserted into the records.
Mr. President, may I also be allowed to give a short sponsorship speech, as I'm one of the authors of this measure, Mr. President.
The Majority Leader, Senator Joel Villanueva, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. In 6 minutes, magandang gabi na. Mr. President, basketball is life, and it goes without saying that the Philippines as a nation is a basketball crazy country, Mr. President. Aside from religiously following the National Basketball Association and idolizing its superstars, the country likewise prides itself for its own Philippine Basketball Association, the country's professional basketball league, and the first of its kind in Asia. Since then, Mr. President, a number of other professional and collegiate basketball leagues have been introduced in response to the growing enthusiasm of the Filipinos to participate in this sport. Hindi na po ako lalayo, Mr. President. I myself was a product of the varsity team of UST High School. My high school teammate is here in the gallery. My college teammate in the person of Jay Torres is also here, Mr. President, as a UST Tigers basketball superstar, Mr. President. And this dedication to the game is further manifested in the game of basketball in international basketball competitions such as Asian Basketball Cup, Mr. President, where we found out that Justin Brownlee is one of our prize players, Mr. President. Thus, it is my great honor, Mr. President, to co-sponsor House Bill number 6224 under Committee Report number 13, or an act granting Philippine citizenship to Justin Brownlee. Justin was born on April 23, 1988 in Georgia, United States of America. His contributions helped his team win 5 PBA titles. And as a Barangay Ginebra fan, we are looking forward to his 6th title in the PBA. And aside, Mr. President, from winning the Best Import Award, not once, but twice, these achievements have brought enormous pride and joy to the Philippine Basketball Association and admiration from all basketball enthusiasts in the country. With a very illustrious career in basketball, he wishes to play for the Philippine national team and has expressed his desire to stay in the country and be a naturalized citizen. Mr. President, I was present during the committee hearing held in this very building of GSIS building. And Mr. President, I was so impressed to the fact that he himself volunteered, Mr. President, to train our very own Gilas players because of his experience, Mr. President. If you recall, he's been playing to different parts of the world. And so he knows what it's like to play in international competition. He volunteered himself, Mr. President, para sa ganoon ay mahasa at lalo pang gumaling at ma-expose ang ating mga basketball players in international competition. Mr. President, his drive to hone his craft, discipline to stay in shape, and determination to win games makes him an epitome of a true Filipino athlete. Mr. Brownlee also demonstrated his willingness to immerse himself in the Filipino culture by learning how to speak Tagalog, being involved in several community service projects, and even expressing his excitement to vote, Mr. President, in the next elections. He has indeed imbibed the bayanihan spirit. We will not ask him to sing the Lupang Hinirang today, Mr. President, but probably when we pass this particular measure. But Mr. Brownlee's unequivocal allegiance to this country, admirable sportsmanship, and remarkable skills in the field of basketball will complement the country's roster of world-class athletes and help the Philippine national team regain recognition in international basketball tournaments. Mr. President, his love for the Philippines and basketball truly makes him a Filipino at heart, and we are very blessed to have him. We welcome him as one of our own, and we look forward to seeing him wearing the Philippine jersey in the 2023 FIBA World Cup. Before I end, Mr. President, I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to our esteemed colleagues, especially the sponsor of this measure, Chairman Senator Francis Tolentino, for his unwavering support to the field of sports in the country and for steadfastly pushing for the passage of this bill. As I mentioned to him earlier, this citizenship bill is probably the fastest, if I'm not mistaken, in the history of this August chamber because of the time constraints, Mr. President, that we are encountering, Mr. President. So again, Mr. President, this representation fully supports this particular measure. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo, and may God bless us all. Mr. President, at this juncture, some of our colleagues present here today already asked this representation to move that they become co-sponsor of the measure. Senator Risa Ontiveros, Senator Nancy Binay, and Senator Cynthia Villar. At this juncture, Mr. President, I move that we recognize the distinguished gentleman from the city of San Juan, Senator Jinggoy Estrada. So moved, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Am I recognized, Mr.
The
President?
gentleman from San Juan, the better one, is recognized.
Let it be placed on record, Mr. President, that the good one said the better one.
I thought you forgot to recognize me. Anyway, Mr. President, I am not here to derail the passage of the Filipino citizenship of Mr. Brownlee. In fact, I am here to manifest my wholehearted support. As you well know, I am an avid fan of Ginebra during the Jaworski era. I have never missed a basketball game of Ginebra during when former Senator Robert Jaworski was still playing for Ginebra. And there is only one condition that I would want to suggest. So I will not interpolate anymore the main sponsor of this bill. If only Justin Brownlee can suit up for San Juan Knights at the MPBL, then I will then I will support the Filipino citizenship of Justin Brownlee. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Jigay, before we continue, I think Justin Brownlee can be considered the cousin of Senator Binay and yours truly. Magkasing itim kami.